Okay, hey guys, Nathan here, Absurd Being, Phenomenology of Perception. This is the third video, and we are still in the introduction, so the second part of the introduction, looking at association and the projection of memories. Okay, so let's have a look. First of all, this whole section deals with empiricism, and still looking at this question: what happens when a collection of qualities are apprehended as a figure on a background? That's kind of the question driving this whole section. And so Merleau-Ponty looks at the classical understanding of sensation here. How have people traditionally understood sensation and perception? And the answer to that is through this theory of associationism. And basically this is the idea that perception is comprised of punctual sensations and nothing else, which gain significance, i.e. meaning or sense, through association with other sensations or perceptions. And so the example that Merleau-Ponty gives is an arc of a circle with 3 points A, B, C. And if we have those, the 3 points are on the arc. And so if we see point A, point B, and point C in that kind of configuration, it looks like part of a circle. Yeah, and it's an arc, so it looks like part of a circle. And we see a circle, even though a circle isn't presented to us. Well, the impression we have is that this is part of a circle. And the reason we have this perception, even though that's not what's in the actual the sensory givens, all we're given are those 3 points, and yet we infer a circle. The reason that happens is because those points and the way that they are grouped are associated with previous sensations we've had, which have shown those points being a part of a circle. So it's all very mechanical. That's the word. I don't think Merleau-Ponty uses that word, but that's the word I use to describe this association theory. It's really mechanical. You get data points coming in from outside. You get these sensory impressions. They we're talking about vision. They strike your retina, and a certain pattern emerges there, and that pattern is matched, associated with other sensory givens or with other perceptions that you've had, and the whole thing is like I say, mechanical. It's a very cause and effect type way of looking at perception. And Merleau-Ponty says the associative force here is very causal in its kind of structure. And the problem with this, Merleau-Ponty says, is that association acts only by making an intention probable or tempting. So he's denying this idea that these sensations are acting in the same way that a physical cause acts to produce an effect. He's denying that kind of strong sense of causality, physical causality. We'll talk about that a little bit more later, and particularly in the next video. But let that stand for now. And another objection he has is that another consequence of this is that there is no room for understanding or knowledge as we typically understand those words. The mind is basically a calculating machine that does not know why its results are true. There's no genuine kind of sense of knowing something here, understanding something. There's just sensory givens, data, impressing themselves on a recorder, which is in this case my retina, recording these images, these patterns, and that being decoded and then matched and associated with other sensory givers and so on. So it's all very mechanical. That's the word. It's very mechanical. The big problem with this is that, as we've already seen in the last video, sensation is not just receiving sensory inputs. Can't be just boiled down to this. The figure contains more than the sensory inputs we receive. We talked a lot about that in the last video. It signifies this. The figure signifies something to us. It announces some other thing not contained in the perceptual givens. There's something more to the perceived than just the sensory givens that impress themselves upon us. So it never appears, even from the first encounter, as a meaningless cluster of qualities, or a meaningless jumble of data points. And we saw that in the way that we talked about things appearing immediately. As soon as they appear to us, they already appear with a sense, in a context, in that field that Merleau-Ponty talked about. So the object is always more than just the given qualities. And we saw that with the Mullerlyer illusion, where those two horizontal lines that were equal in length appeared different. We're not just seeing the horizontal lines the way that a video camera would record them. We're seeing the lines in context. They already are imbued with a sense as soon as we look at them, as soon as we perceive them. So I have a friend who would consider that to be like a deficiency. Yes, he'd argue, well, that's why human perception's flawed. We're flawed. We've been we've evolved in this way such that illusions are possible. It's a defect. And you hear that kind of talk quite a lot these days, because we're so physics oriented, scientifically minded, that the human perception is considered something defective, something inefficient, or kind of imperfect. And I just don't see that as a problem. I don't see that as a valid criticism. First of all, who cares? It doesn't matter whether it's inaccurate, scientifically speaking, or not. It doesn't matter whether we've evolved in a way that's suboptimal. These are all words that you hear. It doesn't matter, because the existentialism is about describing human experience, not the experience of a camera. Right? We're describing our experience, and that is the way that human perception is. Even whether it's evolved, whether it's suboptimal, doesn't matter. We're describing human experience. And the second thing I would say is that I think, and I doubt that you can have a kind of scientifically accurate conscious experience. In order for an experience to be conscious, in order for one in order for genuine perception to take place, I don't think you can have the kind of accurate perceptions, to use that for lack of a better word. You can't have accurate kind of scientific perceptions, because when you get that, you're not getting any conscious experience. Conscious experience requires requires one to be vulnerable to these kind of illusions, because you're seeing things in context. There's a broader background associated with your perception that's not there for, say, a computer or a video camera recording something. And you'll get an accurate and true representation of what's out there, but you won't get a conscious perception. you won't get a conscious experience of what's out there. So I think the suboptimal or imperfect or defective way that we perceive is the way it has to be. I don't think that there can be conscious experience in say an artificial intelligence. So I'm very skeptical of that. Anyway, gone way off topic there. But yeah, so there's everything sensed is immediately sensed in a meaningful context. There's this idea of association, this idea of perception being comprised of punctual sensations made up of purely the sensory givens, and this mechanical process. It's not working for us. And Merleau-Ponty says that psychology approaches this whole idea, it approaches perception from the opposite end. It says that it holds that the parts come first, the sensory details, the qualities, and they're then assembled into a whole, which is built from the parts. Therefore, it can contain nothing other than those parts, nothing other than those sensory givens. And that's, by the way, that's psychology in Merleau-Ponty's time. So that's like mid-20th century psychology, which is exclusively behaviorist, I think. So that's just to remember that's the era that Merleau-Ponty's discussing these ideas from. So when he says psychology, basically he's talking about behaviorism, I think. So that's worth noting. And then he talks about this idea of perception, the projection of memories. And this is, he says that one hears everywhere these days the expression "to perceive is to remember." So apparently that was kind of the go-to psychological slogan of the time. And so he gives 3 examples that psychologists use to defend this claim, this idea, projection of memories. And what it is actually, projection of memories, is the idea that we don't perceive, or the reason we have we're susceptible to these types of illusions. The way that they tried to explain this was through projection of memories, which says that even though we may see something may be presented to us in a particular way, we don't always see it the exact way that it's represented. Sometimes, we'll make a mistake. For example, we'll see something that's given to us as in a particular color. With a particular color, we see it in a different color, and that's because the explanation. So the explanation went, we are projecting our memories of that object onto the sensory givens. So hence the slogan, "to perceive is to remember." And there are 3 examples Merleau-Ponty looks at which are used to defend this idea. The first is that they discovered that the speed of the gaze when reading leaves retinal images incomplete. So we look through lines of text too fast to actually be able to take in every single letter and every single word. Yet we understand the sentences. So that's kind of a problem. How do we resolve that? Well, we don't need to see every single letter because our memory fills in the gaps. That's kind of the idea. That's the projection of memories. Another example there in that same kind of category is an upside down, or a landscape viewed upside down. None of the data points kind of make sense, and yet we are able to understand what the picture is. Especially if we've seen that picture before, we'll recognize it, despite the fact that none of the sensory givens directly correlate with what we know. But that's because we bring up that memory that we have of the landscape, of the painting. Another example, I talked about before the memory color, it's called, and that's where we see an object with a certain color, but we perceive it as being a different color. Reason being, we project our memories of that object onto the actual sensory givens. And the last one is the proofreaders illusion, where you just fail to pick up simple mistakes, mistakes in spelling or transposition errors or something like that. You don't see them, which means that you're not actually seeing what's there. You're seeing what you imagine is there. So you're projecting again your memory. The word is spelt incorrectly, but you remember how it is supposed to be spelt, and that's what you see when you're proofreading. And that's the source of the proofreader's illusion. So Merleau-Ponty's response to all of these is they're all wrong, and they're all wrong for the same reason. And the reason is he asks, how can you access those relevant memories? How do you know which memory to evoke and to superimpose over the actual sensory givens, if the sensory givens completely lack any signification in the first place? So in order to access the memory, the relevant memory, the scene already has to be perceived with its full signification. That's what the idea is. And so an example, just to make that clear, if you imagine the landscape, the painting, it's upside down, you see it. And so the traditional behaviorist psychological explanation says none of the actual sensory givens match, right? None of the image on your retina is completely different from the scene the way it's supposed to be. And so what do? You retrieve the original picture from your memory, and that's what you understand it as. The problem, though, is how do you get to that memory? How do you know which memory to access and to project over the sensory givens, the upside down sensory givens? The only way you could get to that memory in the first place is if the upside down landscape before you already suggested that to you. It already had the meaning and the significance of the original landscape viewed the right way up. And so that's exactly Merleau-Ponty's point. The scene, whatever it is before you, is already imbued with meaning by the time you look at it, by the time you perceive it. In other words, meaning doesn't come from the projection of my memories. It's already there in the object, in the scene before me. Same with, all of those examples we can break down the same way. I'll do the proofreader's illusion quickly. The same can be argued there. You've got a word, say some of the letters are transposed. You don't notice it. Why do you draw on the memory of the correct spelling of the word? Because the word incorrectly spelled still contains the meaning. It still has the significance of the original, of the correctly spelled word. So you're able to draw on that from your memory. But it's only because it's already there in the perception in the first place, in the scene as it's presented to you. Yes, the sensory givens, the point by point qualities that you actually pick up, mechanically speaking, are incorrect. They don't match, and yet you're able to go straight to that memory of the correctly spelled word, and that's only because the word already, as it appears on the page, incorrectly spelled, has that significance, has meaning in it. And I've got a quote which is quite nice for this, and I'll just read it for you. To perceive is not to experience a multitude of impressions that bring along with them some memories capable of completing them. It is to see an immanent sense bursting forth from a constellation of givens, without which no call to memory is possible. Nice. That's it. So basically the idea here then, and just to finish off this section, Merleau-Ponty says empiricism fails for two reasons, basically. First, being mechanical, this mechanical description, this mechanical account of how perception takes place, it ignores the human world. And that's to say a world full of significance, a world full of meaning, and a world full of, or a sense of understanding that comes with it. That's what the human world is. It's a world full of meaning, significance, and it allows genuine understanding, genuine knowledge too, knowledge in the true sense of the word, in a way that we would say humans know something or understand something, but we wouldn't say the same thing of a computer. We don't say a computer understands the text that's on the monitor. It doesn't understand it. It's all there, but there's no understanding behind it. And that's what, like a video camera too, there's no understanding when it sees. It's picking up all the data points, but there's no knowledge, no understanding going on there. It's and that's the problem with this this mechanical description. It ignores that human element, and indeed under empiricism there is no significance. It's all just mechanical processes, cause and effect, the cause and effect, you know what I mean. So that was the first reason that he notes empiricism fails. The second reason, he says, it also distorts the natural world, and it does this by reducing it to the sum of stimuli and qualities. So it doesn't register the natural world authentically, really, or the way it really is. It offers a kind of watered down view of just stimuli, mechanical again. And so it doesn't uncover the significance of the background in our perception, which is important. And we'll talk about that a few videos down the track. But, we kind of touched on it in the last video too. So we see the figure on a background. We always see a figure on a background, and that background is comprised of objects in the natural world, so to speak, but that loses its significance as well with empiricism, because all you get are it's just data points. That's all. So we don't see, for example, the cement beneath the monument. We don't see the tiring actor beneath the character. All you see is what's directly given to you, data points, sensory givens. So those are the two reasons he doesn't like this. Cool, let's have a quick look at a summary. So first we looked at empiricism, which basically is associationism, and we saw that under this kind of rubric, perception is mechanical. And meaning is acquired through, to the extent that it even is, it's acquired through association. So everything is this mechanical kind of cause and effect. One set of sensory givens causes another set of sensory givens, and that causes another. And so you've got this chain, this cause-effect chain kind of at play. And an important part of this whole idea of associationism was projection of memories, which we saw meant to perceive is to remember. That was the idea. And this fails for two reasons, two notable reasons. First, it doesn't explain the human world. There's no significance to an empiricist description of perception. And it also distorts the natural world. So we lose not just the figure, but we also lose the background. Yeah, and we lose any kind of meaning or significance that the human world actually contains. So it doesn't describe actual human experience. Okay, so that's this section. Another short one. Yeah, association and projection of memories. Cool. Thanks for watching. I think we're just kind of building. Really, it's a nice slow progression into the core of Merleau-Ponty's philosophy, which is really good. So again, thanks for watching, and I'll catch you in the next video. See ya.